Hi guys, and welcome to my brand new Songs of Syx tutorial mini-series. So, with this being episode 1, I'm going to get you through some of the basics to start off your little colony and get an understanding of how the startup process works. For example, what race you can pick and what the differences are, how you can actually survive and not die quite quickly, little tips and tricks of picking a spot on the map, all that sort of thing. I'm going to leave timestamps in the video so that you can click and choose which part of the video you're interested in if you aren't interested in every single part. Following on from this episode, I'm then going to go in order of what I feel are important so you can survive. For example, an episode on farming, an episode on defense, an episode on the world map and maybe attacking other cities, that sort of thing. So if you're interested in that, then please do subscribe so you can stay tuned to get notified about it. Without further ado, let's get on with the video. So, as of recording, we are in build 65. So, to start the game, you go to play, and you can obviously play the in-game tutorial, but I don't usually like to do that. I like to first watch YouTube videos like you're doing here, just because I like to have someone explain it to me. So, go to random game. Here is where you'd normally pick your match. You can choose, for example, the different levels of difficulty. I like to keep everything on normal, but you can go to easy. As you can see though, you can't unlock titles. And what that means is, it's almost like a little achievement thing. So when you play the game, there's little milestones. If you hit them, you unlock what's called a title, and that then enables you to enable that title when you next start. So for example, one title might be that you hit 1,000 population, you then unlock a title, which once you enable it, maybe means you start with 60 new people. A little bonuses, a little boost, they don't mean too much. So don't worry about having to play on easy difficulty your first time, but I'm going to be playing just on normal so I can unlock those titles. But I'm not going to change anything else, just click go. So guys, we're now in the next phase of starting your colony. This is where you choose the starting species. This really doesn't mean too much because once you start, you're not locked to your species. You can allow other species to immigrate in, and then once you get a little bit further in, you can actually breed or reproduce those species that you choose. So this isn't a locked in, but it's just a nice way to start. And if you want to go for a single race only playthrough, obviously this is quite important. But you can choose these 6 races, but there are actually 8 races in the game, just 2 you can't pick in this menu, and that is the Argonosh and the Cantors. So that is like spider people is how I like to look at them, and the Cantors are like giants. As we can see, as we click on them, we can see a little few details. We can see the challenge level that the game suggests how difficult they are. So we can see here the I can't ever say them. The Garthimi is what I call them. They're quite easy, just because you can get such a massive population with them quite quickly, unlike some of the other species, and they also aren't terribly hard to manage. But as we can see here, they have terrible at knowledge work, weak morale, and then they aren't really very good at anything. They can just do a lot of things because there are so many of them. On the opposite side, you have the humans, who are very good at the managing and very good at the science, good farmers and good learning. But again, they're sort of in the middle, where battle-wise they're rubbish, and one almost unique to the humans is criminal and mentally unstable. So if you have lots of humans, you might find you need much more law and order services to deal with them. And then difficult to please, yes, quite used to that with humans. So difficult to please is you need to have lots of different types of commodities and luxuries to actually get the happiness up. But that isn't too much of an issue, especially early on. But yeah, you can choose from these ones. So again, skip ahead if you're not interested in the in-depth one, but we've got the Cretonians, who are the perfect sort of starter race because they're excellent farmers, and farming's a very important early on process, especially if you're new and just want to get used to it. So they're very good at that. They also, not something I'll tell you here, but they use wood as their favourite building resource, and obviously wood's very plentiful, very easy to build all your buildings out of wood. That's another little bit of happiness just for them. As you can see here, easy to please, and if you get a little further in, you get temples and stuff like that. They are very happy with that. But later on, you find they're very bad in combat. So if you want to raise a big army, you might need to have other races immigrate into your base, so you can actually build armies from a different race that's actually quite good. For example, the Dondorians or the Tilapis, who are a little bit better at fighting than the Cretonians are. Next, we have the race that is probably one of the most sought after for games like Dwarf Fortress, and that is the Dondorians. So they basically are dwarfs. The game just calls them Dondorians, but they're actually hard, and I'm not sure it's probably best to play them on your first playthrough, especially if you don't know what you're doing. But the Dondorians are very good at all things crafting, great in workshops, making metals and armors and swords. They're great at making bread. Anything that you can think of as like a manufacturing process, they're really good at. And as you can see here, hardy in combat, so they're a good defensive force, a good one to have your armies made of. But you can see here, the Tilapis and the Garthimi, they hate them. So you do find that with the Dondorians and some of the other races like the Tilapis, I'm pretty sure, yep, dislike other species. So you can see some races don't get on well with each other, and that's where it's quite important to think of what race or races you want in your starting settlement. So for example, I like to play a lot of human only or Tilapi only playthroughs. Human just because I think it's I think it's silly, but the Tilapi, for example, because they generally just dislike other species, so they'll get happiness debuffs if you'll mix them with a lot of other species, especially the Dondorians. So the Dondorians, maybe avoid them just to start with, and the reason is because their favourite place, funnily enough, is in the mountains. So building a mountain base might be a little bit more difficult than just building a nice wooden village that the Cretonians would need. Next, we have the Garthimi, who they're massive breeders. I just like to literally think of them as an insect population. You get them in, I think they actually spawn with more population, and they're very quick to reproduce. And because, as you can see here, they've got low demands, they're very easy just to keep building. Fast breeders as well means that not only can you get lots immigrating in because of the low demands, but the fast breeders means once you get your breeding and reproduction building set up, they obviously pump out a lot more. Combat wise though, they're also good, and because you've got so many of them, you might not need to provide them with as much equipment as you would with other races like the humans, who don't really have anything going for them in military style. So you can pump out loads of them, and they've got the piercing damage plus the fast movement, making them pretty damn good, or cheap I should say, combat wise. But as then you can see, the terrible at knowledge and just very bad and bland skill wise makes them, yes, you get a lot of them in number, but you might struggle to have a good strong economy going. Humans, your bog standard. They're the ones I play as the most. Quite boring, I know, but I just like the fact that they're just all round pretty good. Because they're good farmers, you can cover your own food source very well, but then you can also export a lot of food because you do make a good amount of food. Good learning rate means you can get a lot of technology because it's very effective and efficient. You have lots of people as scientists, you get plenty of tech points, which then means you can pump it again into your food production and other production buildings, meaning you get even more out of them. And then the good administration and management side of them means later on when you want envoys and you want administrators to manage a big kingdom, they're quite good at that. Unremarkable in combat, they're not as bad as, for example, like the Cretonians, but they're just bog standard. I think they literally just get a melee, a blunt melee bonus, or might even get nothing. They really are pretty useless. The criminal and mentally unstable, I don't think it's too much of an issue because I've had pretty big human-only populations and it's never been something that I've had a problem with. As long as you've got your basic law and order, you're fine. Limited natural skills, yeah, you do find when you're playing the humans, they have a lot of skill sets, especially in manufacturing, that are very bog standard, so you can't really specialise in mining, production, that sort of thing. So that is where they do fall a bit flat, especially against someone like the Dondorians who are perfect and all of that. And they're difficult to please, yes, you will find your struggle for happiness in providing, for example, furniture. We'll find about this later on in the game, but they're difficult to please. However, because they're really good farmers, you can get a lot more food and up their ration amounts. So actually, I don't think this is one that is too difficult either. They're difficult to please. I have to be honest and say the Amevias are one I haven't actually played. I've played all the other races, but I have not played as these guys. But from my knowledge of them, and as we can see down here in the information section, what they seem to be is just good, sturdy bunch, however, are hard to maintain. So when you do have them, really good. You can see hardy fighters, good all around. They just have bonuses in pretty much everything. Low appetites, you don't need that much food. So the poor farmers isn't too much of an issue because they have a low appetite, but you just won't be able to export lots of food. Slow breeders means once you get them, they're good, but it's just hard to get them. Then if you can get lots to immigrate, not too much of an issue. But dislikes other species, so they're quite reclusive. You do maybe need to think you want to go for Amevia only playthrough or not, and must live close to sweet water. So sweet water, something we'll get into a little bit later, but there's two types of water in the game. There's sort of your salt water like oceans, sea tiles, which you can do a bit of fishing on, but that's about it. And then you've got sweet water, which is maybe freshwater lakes, freshwater rivers that you can do fishing, and you can, well, now with version 65, have like water pumps, that drinkable water, and all of that. So they must actually live close to rivers and lakes. Finally, you've got the Tilapis. So the Tilapis are really good in all things sort of nature-wise, is how I like to think of it. So woodcutting and forestry, brilliant. Herders, so managing livestock, really good. And then ranged combat, so yeah, that natural sort of hunting, being out in the forests and herding animals, really good at all of that. They then also are good at archers. So if you want an army of archers, the Tilapis are a good one. And because they're really good at ranged combat and really good at making bows, you can get quite an efficient use of them, getting a big garrison of archers. If you want to get wooden walls and then have the Tilapis as the archers, that's a good idea. A bit like the humans though, they do have the problem with the law and order in case they can be violent. And as per with the Dondorians, they dislike other species, so you might find that you either have to get other species in but separate the colonies. So on your map, actually have just two different like little bases set up with different species, or just go for a Tilapi only. But yeah, that is all the races, guys. I am going to play the Cretonians because I recommend them just as your first playthrough, first or second playthrough, just to play with them. Really easy, your bog standard sort of colony builder style species. So let's give them a go. For the next bit, I always just leave on random with a random seed, but obviously do what you want. Southern or northern latitude literally depends on what sort of temperature and climate you want. Northern would be more cold, southern would be more of the map's hot. I'm gonna leave it right in the middle. Map random is what I always go for, like I said, but you can generally choose any maps of island maps. Got one here of Europe, one here of England. I'm gonna go back and just choose random. So keep the seed random. If you want to play along with me, you can use the seed here. So I'll give you just remember to pause the video and type that one in. Otherwise, just click generate and the map is going to generate for us. So look how big the world map is, guys. And if you think each little time I move my mouse, this is somewhere you could spawn, and the map you spawn on is big. This map is very, very big. And once you spawn in, this map is the map you're on. So there'll be lots and lots of little colonies all dotted around that you can trade with, you can invade, you can do diplomacy with. Very, very cool stuff. And the map gives you hints of what your territory would be like. If you place your tile next to a mountain here, you will find the mountain is blocked off there. If you place your tile on the forest, you can see here, look, it says forest 100%. So when you're on the map, there'll be a lot of trees everywhere and you'll have to cut down a lot of trees to build anything. Place it here, you can see the forest is actually now 2/3 of the map, but there is a third of the map that's open land, and there's a bit of sweet water, a bit of freshwater river flowing through. What the little tiles here mean is there's an abundance of that resource in the area. So for example, this here is clay, this here will be stone, coal over here, you got gems, iron, yeah, ores for your metal. So the more tiles, the more resources there are. That doesn't mean that you can only, for example, find clay here. If you go to anywhere, you might find some clay deposits. This means here there's an abundance and more likely that it's better clay. What that means is that when you actually go to mine it, you get more out of mining it. But there's a risk. When you place your tile somewhere with lots of like resource tiles, it does increase the risk of getting raided, which makes sense. If you've got a place with gems, it's much more likely that raiders are going to want to come take on your land and take your gems. So that is a risk. Placing your thing on these tiles does increase the chance of getting raided, but that might be something you incorporate. Maybe you get to export lots more material, and so you can afford a bigger garrison. That is up for you to decide. I'm not going to spawn on one of these places. I'm going to spawn somewhere pretty balanced. A mixture of trees, mixture of fresh water, and then just a bit of open land. So I like the look of here. One last thing before we go into it is you can see here the climate. So different species prefer different climates. The Cretonians just prefer the bog standard sort of temperate climate. And we can see here, it says climate, temperate, and we can see, this isn't just for the Cretonians, this is what temperate is. Temperate's going to give us 50% boost to our all-rock pastures, which is like cows, and a 50% boost to our intolerant pastures, which is like pigs. So pigs, more meat, cows, more leather. So by going temperate, get plus 50%. If we come all the way up here, climate, cold, you can see it's changed. We now have cotton, opiate and globadian, they've all gone down, but other things have gone up. And hygiene, you can see, it's gone up as well. So there is like a different mixing around of different climates, and different species prefer different climate. You can see down here, warm again, it's the opposite now. Cotton's gone up, opiates have gone up. So have a think of what your race, which temperate, which biome is it like? For example, temperate will be good for the Cretonians. Yeah, I'm gonna go back to where I was. So one other thing is, while we cannot see factions on the map just yet, we can see that it says here, if we're going to spawn here, if you look at the yellow text at the bottom, you can see this location is isolated. What that means is, once we click spawn and all the territories are generated around us, we'll find that the bases near us, I don't want to say opposition, but the other nations near us, or not near us, will be quite far away, making it less risky that we'll obviously have conflict with them. But if you want to invade other people or you want to trade with other people, not so good. But I actually try and avoid that isolated one because I like to do a lot of exporting and importing. Instead, yeah, over here you can see it's no longer telling us it's isolated. So I think this one is good enough. Oh no, now it's telling us it's isolated. Here we go. So we can see the world has generated around us. And these are all simulated little nations. So some nations are single tiles, just like us, just one base, one city. Others are large conglomerates of lots of cities, and they actually have wars, and they will fight each other, and they will expand, and they will disintegrate, whatever. And you can sort of see it by the colours of them. You can see these ones are all the same colour here. And you can also see the little trade routes as well between the cities. And these are simulated. So when caravans leave, they will follow these trade routes. So the further away a city is, the more money and longer it will take for them to arrive to you. But alas, enough about that. We have got these buttons up here. If you want to go back and want to change your status point, you can click here. If you want to regenerate the world, you can click this one. But no, I am happy. Let's go ahead. So guys, we are in, and this is the map. You can see a very, very big map, because what I'm about to spawn in here is the throne room. And the throne room is actually a pretty decent sized building. So we can see that when we zoom out, like, it barely dents the map. The map is huge. You can see that 5.5% of the map of Sweetwater is actually a massive river that flows through. We can see pockets of forest, and actually though, nice big areas of open land. So I want to get my throne strategically placed somewhere near the fresh water, so near this river, somewhere where there is a good amount of trees nearby, but not too many that we're going to have to cut down everything, because trees in this game need to be cut down regularly. If you want, for example, to put a massive farm, but the trees in the way, you'll have to get a lot of workers to cut down all those trees. While they give you a lot of wood, it's going to take up quite a bit of time. So I just like the idea of my town hall or my throne room being placed here, quite close to the river, but it gives me a good amount of space to expand down. And I can just cut down these trees when I need to. So we've got our throne room down. This obviously you have to place, and here you get a few starting resources. So a little bit of grain to, well, hopefully you can plant in time. You've then got stone and wood, just some basic building materials to start with, some rations to last you a little bit of time, and then livestock just to get your first pasture set up. Livestock counts for everything, so you can build whatever pastures you want with that livestock. But we're in. So whether you listen to me blabber on about all the races and all the map stuff, or you've skipped right to this part, we want to talk now about how you can play the game once you've spawned in. So a few key things. Over here, you've got the races. You can see almost all of them say 0 because we don't have that race. The Cretonians at the top say 10. A little bit of information about them if you hover your mouse over. If you right click, you can actually open this race window in depth. You'll be looking at this a lot, and it's very, very detailed, and you'll be quite intimidated, or at least I was when I first looked at this. I didn't know what I was looking at. All I would say is to start with, just look at these two bars here. The loyalty and happiness are usually tied. The greater the happiness, the less likely your people will rebel, obviously, and the more likely people are to immigrate. If you get very, very high happiness, like 90%, 100%, lots of people want to immigrate, and you can then have lots of new people join you. You want to try and increase this number. Obviously, if we're not bothered about increasing the amount of people we've got, because we've got too little food, we just don't really care about getting more people right now, you don't need to worry about that too much. This is tied to lots of things in this window. You can see environment, a million things that, change happiness. Lighting the streets have, how much swimming access people have, the roads types, how the buildings. Remember what I said about Cretonians liking wood? You can see they're 100% next to the wooden building on the right. So if you have your buildings built out of wood, people will love you. But if you have a human population, they like cut stone buildings. So yeah, it gets a bit complicated, but you can see that by hovering over it. If we look again, like I just said, at humans building, you see 100% in the middle one, which is like cut stone. So climate, we can see 100% because we're in a temperate biome. There's lots of things. But the ones I'd say to focus on are these access ones. Food days, food rations, and then housing, and the ones down here. These are the main big ones, but really, I find food is the most important one. If your people have plenty of food days, and you give them a decent amount of rations, you always just start on one ration, but once we get more food, we can up that number. People will love you and they'll want to move in. The next one you think about is services. So you start with a few services unlocked. So, and sorry, getting quite complicated now, but this is going to be really, really important later on. Civics here, we've got all the different types of services. So they're all split out into different things. So for example, health generally helps you with your people's health, but it also provides a service. Because if we can see here, health, we've got lavatory. Go to services, we have got lavatories as a service. But I don't want to blabber on about it too long because that is not important right now. You wanted to find out how you can survive. So let's talk about that. First thing we want to get is a bit of food, a bit of early on food. You can find hunter. So as the Cretonians, we don't have the best hunters, but we definitely have good enough hunters that we can get on with things. If we zoom out, we can see the different resources on the map. So the ones with grey boxes are animals, and these are ones that are hunted. As far as I'm aware, these animals don't reproduce. And if they do, I always find my hunters kill them faster than they can reproduce. So basically, it's a very short-term, early-on food source because sooner or later, your hunters would have killed all the animals on the map. So don't rely on hunters is what I'm trying to say. But I do want to get a decent size early-on hunters. So how it's working is we drag out the building we want to build. What we can see here is the building material we've chosen. Now, actually, I have got mud building started, but I want to go for wood because as we showed earlier, my people do like wooden buildings as their favorite, and we've got plenty of wood nearby. So I'm going to select wood. Next, I want to build a door. So you click this button here, place doorways, and you can place a door wherever you want. Obviously, place it somewhere where you don't think you're going to expand because you can connect buildings together. So if you, for example, want to connect the building up here, don't build a bloody door there. We've got our door there. Next is where the fun begins. This is where we actually outfit buildings. So as you can see here, currently this building is going to hire 0 workers and it's going to output 0 anything. We want to change that. So we've got the 2 things here that this building can have. A butcher's table, which increases the amount of hunters that can work there. More hunters means, more meat, more leather. And we've got utilities, which just generally impacts the efficiency of the hunters. So at the moment, hunters will produce only half of what they could do. If we build more utility buildings, you can see that goes up to 100%. But it's based on the amount of hunters. If I click this one, it goes down. If I click this one, it goes down again. So we need to build more utilities proportional to how many hunter spots we build. Little tip, and something I didn't find out for too many hours, is once you've got this building, the butcher's table, you can click them down, brilliant. By the way, I'm holding shift and then dragging to delete. If you then click the E button, see it expands. For this one doesn't expand further than this now, but you actually can build 2-in-1. This one isn't a very good example because it doesn't really change anything, because you can see here, 2-in-1 makes no difference to building a single one. But later on in other buildings, you actually find that clicking the E button is more efficient because the little square tabs that are empty, they actually are proportional, sorry, not proportional to how many cross tabs there are. What I'm trying to say is it takes up less space to build bigger and bigger things. So you can fit more hunters in the same size area by building the bigger thing. If that makes any sense. This one doesn't do anything, because you can see the bigger one is literally the same proportional increase. So I'm just going to stick actually just with these ones, and I'm going to do that. So that actually might be too big for a hunter's building because we've got 5 hunters. So I'm just going to shrink the building. How I've done that is, instead of clicking this one, which lets you expand the room, I'm going to click this one. And I'm just going to shrink the room. What I'm then going to do, this is a perfect example. So you can see here, this is 0.4 efficiency, but this one, oh no, never mind. I'm talking absolute rubbish about it being more efficient. Ignore me on that one. But we can see here that I've expanded it. I've only had to build 2. So we've only got 90% efficiency, but you know what? There we go, 98%. I'm not going to lose any sleep over that last 2%. So we've got our door. I'm going to click the shift key to delete that. Now I'm going to put the door here. So we've got a hunter's building. It's going to cost 44 furniture. It's going to cost 55 or 51 wood. Let's get that made. So we've got our hunter spot laid out. What I'm going to do, just as a nice demonstration, is just lay out some roads, because I like building the roads as well. But there are a benefit to roads. So if we come to the search bar here, just type in roads, we can go into the road building. And at the moment we only have dirt roads, but you can see dirt roads give 50% road access, and they increase your speed by 10%. People who use roads go 10% faster. And then it also gives you, if you go back down to environment, see this road one that improves people's happiness, it's at 0%. It will bring that to 50% if we build roads everywhere that people walk, pretty much. If you take our roads, the game will show you later on highlights of areas which get walked on more, where you do want to build your roads. But for now, I'm just going to lay out a nice road connecting my 2 buildings together. So let's turn on the game and let's speed up. And you can see these highlighted in light blue are where workers are going to go build things. Workers are people who currently don't have a job, and so they're just classed as workers, labourers, that sort of thing. People who do have a job can still do work, but it's very, very, very slow. How it works is, let's say they work in the hunter shack, they'll do their work in the hunter shack. If they have any free time, they might do some odd jobs in the area. Let's say, for example, this dirt road right next to the hunter shack, they finish their work at the hunter shack, they might build this road. It's very slow, very unreliable. You do always need, especially if you want lots of work done, building work I mean, they're now called plebeians, they used to be called odd jobbers. You now want your workforce always in a little bit of a positive position, but you can obviously have all your workers used up in jobs. You just won't really get any construction done. But while we're getting that done, let's move on to the next thing. It's actually a carpenter. So we type in carpenter here, but you can use the search bars here. So as it's carpenter, it would be in crafting here in this first one. So carpenters turn wood into furniture. So we actually need furniture to build the hunter construction, which is new. We never used to need furniture for hunter construction, I don't believe. Maybe I'm just losing my mind. But the hunters one is obviously what we need for the food, so we do need some carpenters. And carpenters are also useful because you can use the furniture to improve access. So you can see here, if you click the little buttons here, what that is doing is supplying, you can see here, the amount allowed to furnish a subject's home. So the more you click this button, the more you're saying you're allowing your people to just take furniture from your stocks. That then gives them a happiness bonus because they've had access to that resource, and it will also increase their furniture happiness. The furniture is important, but we also need it in quite a lot of buildings. So let's get the furniture, the carpenter's shop laid out. Let's put a little doorway here. And then let's do the same. So workbench, as we said before, is where we actually get the carpenters. It's now giving us 12 employees. And we then need auxiliary stations to improve the efficiency. So let's just lay this one out here. And then we need just a little bit of storage, just so we can store a bit of furniture. without having to have it always in a warehouse or always in a deficit. So let's get this building laid out here. And what I was saying earlier, I wasn't lying, it is more efficient. Just as a little example, what I've shown here is this is one workstation put down. You can see one workstation hires 2 employees. So let's say this is 2 employees here, and this is 2 employees here. That is 4 employees worth. If we click E to expand it, you can see this button is 1 tile wider, yet it is for 4 employees. You can see that this number will go from 18 23. Sorry, it doesn't go for 4 employees. I'm chatting absolute shit. But it is still more efficient because you can see it is still has the 2 extra tiles. So if you go to this size, let me just delete this. This one now goes to, can't do my maths, goes to 5. So we can see it is more efficient. I wasn't chatting absolute rubbish earlier. It is more efficient to build as long as possible because it does get the most workers out of the space. So if we do something like this, we've got 18, give it a little bit of space over here to get some efficiency, and then a little bit of storage. If you come over to the miscellaneous tab here, and you go to terraform, you can get fell tree. So we can now see we're going to cut down all of those trees. By felling the trees, it obviously clears out the space, but also gets us some wood. When we chop it down, we should see little wood piles appear. Yep, 3 wood, 4 wood, 5 wood. So we've got the wood. We'll let our workers do that, and then we should then get enough wood for this. Stone, we have 60. There'll be 60 stone here, perfect. But the stone is just the exact same. You come to terraform, and you go clear rock. And you can see little, we don't actually have any here. We zoom out a little bit. Here's some stone. You can see it highlights it in that green to say you've got it selected. So we'll get that stone cut there as well. So we have got our throne room set up. We've got our hunter being constructed. It now just needs furniture. We're just relying on our carpenter. We've got our carpenter actually placed down, which we need wood and stone for. Next, as part of our starter collection of buildings, we need a janitor. So if we come down to miscellaneous, janitor. The janitor, when I first was playing this game, I thought it was generally like a janitor. No, it's basically like a maintenance man. It's like your engineer, repair team. Basically, they do all the repairs of your buildings. So roads, buildings, they deteriorate over time. The material that they're made of depends on how quickly they deteriorate. But they do deteriorate. What they then need is the resources they're made of put back into them, and a janitor to put that resource back into them and repair it. So janitors are important. You need one at the very start. Obviously, you don't build any. Your buildings will deteriorate and you won't be able to fix them. But you need them dotted around as you get bigger and bigger, just so you can cover an area. But we're going to get just a small one because I don't think we need anything too crazy. I'm going to get maybe not even 3. Oh, yeah, I'm not even going to get 3 because we don't have enough utility space. So let's get that. We've got 100%. 10 janitors is actually still plenty. But remember, you don't need to hire all 10. For any building, you can decide how many people are employed. So here, 10, we can actually just have 2. But it just gives us the option to go up to 10. I'm just going to expand the road here. And then we'll get our janitor building set up. It just needs wood and stone again, so we can get that one done quite nicely. Okay, so we do have too much wood cutting jobs over here. So what I've done is come over to the delete button. And I'm going to say delete jobs. And I'm just going to highlight a lot of these trees. We just do not need that much wood. I probably highlighted a little bit too much as part of my my example of getting some wood. So we'll get that wood. We'll get it built into our carpenter. And the carpenter then will take some of our odd jobs. That is the thing. We will get a carpenter up, but we'll lose workers who would be able to build roads and build other buildings. So, some tips for speed on the game. Obviously, you've got the 1, 2, 3 for how fast you want the game. But once you've got it set to speed fastest, if you hit that button again, it goes from 25 times speed to 250 times speed. You can see how quick we're getting our little carpentry shop build there, and then bosh, got it done. But you see that massive, still our 10 plebeians, so just the 10 people, but drop down to -11 workforce. How does that make any sense? Well, because we've finished the carpenter's shop, it is immediately automatically hired it to full capacity of 20 workers. Obviously, we don't have 20 workers, so it's actually gone to -11. We don't want 20 workers here right now because we obviously want people still able to work to build other buildings and gather resources. So I'm going to set this to 5. Actually, I'm going to set it to 8 because we do want that furniture pretty cool. 8 workers. These people should then start appearing to work in the carpenter shop. We've got 1 employer in the janitor, but you can see we can go up to 10, but I'm going to set it back to 1 because what the game's done there is auto-employ. Auto-employ means the game looks at how many people it could employ, looks at how many people it thinks it should employ, and sets it to that number. So here, you can see we can employ 10, but actually it thinks we just need 1, how many buildings we've got. So it set it just to 1, and that is what I'm happy with. Carpenter, on the other hand, auto-employ doesn't really make too much of a difference. It basically just means it won't set it to a point at which the workload is so little that your people really aren't doing anything. It tries to aim for 100% workload, but because we've only got enough space for 20 engineers anyway, it's not too much of an issue. So I'm going to leave it at 8. I'm going to have 1 person left just to gather some stone and work on a few things. The final building needed just to finish our little starter collection of buildings is the warehouse. We don't need anything crazy big just to start with, but because where we're building will probably become our central town, you might think you may need something a little bigger just to get you through later on, where you might have a lot of goods stored in the middle of your town. So I'm going to go for something quite medium-sized. What you can see now, though, is this yellow has appeared. You might be thinking, what the hell is that? Well, firstly, you can see this new number has appeared here, and rooms are built too deep or too wide. Extra materials must be used to build and maintain it. Yellow tiles represent this. So basically what I said about the janitor, about your buildings deteriorating, yellow tiles increase the rate, in this case by 74%, because of how many yellow tiles we've got proportional to how many tiles in total. We definitely don't want this. What you can do is build supports for your rooms. That's not a fancy pillar or anything like that. All it is by clicking the shrink room button, but this time only clicking 1 tile at a time. You can see it's eliminated those yellow tiles, which has got rid of the deterioration rate, and it hasn't cost us any extra resource. It could be just shrinking the room. So tiles and supports do need to be built close, because you can see here these ones that we're building now to shrink the room, it doesn't do anything. So we need to build it actually quite close. We don't need to build it on top of it. For example, we could do that and give us a little bit of space and still build our crates around. So you can decide how best you think it would be to allocate your things. I'm going to do something like this. Okay, so I'm very happy with the amount of efficiency I've got out of this. There's a little bit of unused space here where I've got those pillars, but actually, really, I've got almost all the space I can out of this building. And you can see this could be able to store 6.2 thousand units of stuff. And I can choose what that stuff is, but it's 6,200 units. So I'm going to build my door just here, and I'm ready. We can see 169 wood, those. It's quite a lot of wood, but I don't need this built just yet because our resources are currently stored in the throne room, and they're not going to go off too soon. So guys, that is it for now. We've covered the absolute basics. We have talked about the races in the game. We've talked about how to spawn on the world map and a little few things and details about that. We've spoken about, some of the basics of just looking at your population and understanding how they can be made happy to get more people. So in this case, look here, our happiness is increasing. We'll go into this a lot more detail in the following videos, but it's just an understanding of if you want to get more people, you need to increase your happiness, and you can look at these bars and look into the things to see what makes them more happy. So in this case, for example, we can see that because they're getting cloves, because we had some cloves on our spawn, they're actually getting quite happy with that. And environment, buildings, because our buildings are all made out of wood, they're very, very happy. Roads is also increasing because they like the roads. So happiness is going up. Buildings, we've got throne room, obviously have to have. Doesn't really mean too much, but if it ever gets captured in a raid, it's game over for you. You've lost your base. Janitor maintains buildings. Carpenter, really important early on, so you can actually make your own furniture, but later on you might make your own furniture to provide to your people, you might make your own furniture to sell, whatever. We've got that going just so we can get some furniture to make the hunter. Hunter, obviously to get some early game food in, but not so good in the late game. And then finally, a warehouse, which we're building so that we can store resources. They don't deteriorate as quickly, and they can then be accessed for other buildings to use. So guys, if you've enjoyed this video, please leave it a like. If you want to see more Songs of Syx content or more Songs of Syx tutorials, please do subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.